You get into your car. The key turns. The engine roars to life. You reach for your phone. Open Spotify. Select your morning playlist. Press play. But instead of sound, there's silence. Thick. Oppressive. All you can hear is the pounding of your pulse in your temples. You check the settings. Restart the app. Skip tracks. Nothing. Apple Music doesn't work. YouTube doesn't work. Even the old CD in the glove compartment is silent, as if the tracks have been erased by an invisible hand. You look in the rearview mirror. The world has changed. And this silence isn't just the absence of sound. It's the scream of emptiness. Have you ever felt this way? Every day? Music in headphones and speakers in the background. 5 hours a day. But try to hum even one verse of your favorite song now. Can't do it? It's not surprising. We listened to everything and remembered nothing. Technology replaced memory. And when the servers fell silent, it turned out, we weren't storing music. We were just renting it for a while. Imagine empty vinyl store shelves, dead playlists, radio stations playing silence, a party without a beat, a wedding without a first dance, a funeral without a requiem. Music disappeared, and with it, the rituals that kept us in a human rhythm collapsed. Have you noticed how your body reacts to sudden silence? Palms sweat. Breathing becomes erratic. The brain panics. Where's the soundtrack to life? But here's the paradox. While recordings are silent, live sound returns. The neighbor in the stairwell picks up a guitar. Children in the street hum snippets of melodies passed down from their grandmothers. In the park, an impromptu jam. Without pause, without rewind, without likes. Only the voice, only the instrument, only now, and for the first time in decades, you listen not with your ears, but with your whole body. Remember this moment, music is not content. It is memory, recorded in flesh. And when the recordings vanished, we weren't left naked. We simply remembered. To hear, you have to be present. Marcus had been spinning records in Brooklyn for 20 years. His mixes garnered millions of plays. He knew how the bass trembled before a drop, how the needle scratched on the third track from The Rejects, how to guide a crowd from hip-hop to jazz without losing the rhythm. But on the day of the collapse, he sat down at his old Technics and couldn't recall a single melody. Not the one he played yesterday, not the one that made him famous. He hummed, stumbled, clapped his hands, trying to catch the beat. But all that remained in his head was a feeling, warmth in his chest, a surge of energy, glances in the crowd. The music wasn't there, only an echo. He looked at the empty shelves, and for the first time in 20 years, felt deaf. Not to sound, to himself. Did you do that too? Stored tracks in playlists, but not in your memory. Then imagine by 2024, 98% of all commercial music existed only in digital format. Vinyl was a hobby, cassettes were nostalgia, CDs were museum pieces. Everything else was clouds, servers, algorithms, and none of these recordings had an analog copy. Backup archives? Also digital, also in the same systems. So, when the global crash hit, everything disappeared. No demo, no draft, not even a track title remained. Only memory. And the brain, it turned out, cannot store thousands of hours of sound. It's not a restaurant menu, it's hunger. And this is where the most terrifying part begins. Neither the Library of Congress, nor Sony, nor Spotify had a plan for such a scenario. Because we believed, if music is everywhere, it's safe. But ubiquity doesn't protect, it kills. The more a system depends on a single point, the faster it collapses. And when that point disappeared, humanity didn't lose tracks. it lost the archive of its soul. From Robert Johnson to Beyoncé, everything erased, as if it never existed. And the industry? It died overnight. Because it wasn't selling music. It was selling copies. The right to own a track, subscriptions, royalties, all of it vanished when the commodity disappeared. Only the voice remained. Only live sound. But a voice is not a commodity. It's a gift. And you? You were used to paying for background noise. And now, listening as an event, looking into the artist's eyes, breathing in the same rhythm, because without recording, music demands presence and responsibility. Are you ready? In Nashville, the last employee turns off the light. On the table, empty cups, a forgotten jacket, a monitor displaying connection error. The server room is silent, like a tomb. No data, no tracks, no contracts. He walks out, locks the door, and doesn't look back. Because he knows there's nothing to return to. Copyright is the right to own a track. Not a melody in your head, not a hum in the kitchen, but the recording itself, an object. When the object disappeared, rights turned to dust. Have you ever wondered how much a song is worth that no one can prove? The law requires proof, a file, sheet music, metadata. And they are no longer there. Only memory. And memory is not proof. $15,700,000,000. That's how much royalties generated in the U.S. every year. And this entire economy collapsed in 24 hours. Not because of piracy, not because of a crisis. Simply no recording, which means no commodity. Labels, managers, lawyers, distributors, everything crumbled like a house of cards. Did you also believe that music was an asset? It turned out it was a debt. Digital, fragile, temporary. But what remained? Live sound remained. A voice in the stairwell. A violin in the park. A drum on the corner. Without recordings, music ceased to be content. It became an event. You can no longer replay it. Only hear it. Here. Now. And remember it, if you can. Do you know this feeling? When you try to hum a song, but your mind is just a blank? That used to be normal. Now, it's a tragedy. Because those who once stood in the shadows, street musicians, school choirs, grandmothers with lullabies, suddenly became the last archivists. Not keepers of tracks, keepers of memory. Imagine, you go to a wedding. No DJ, no playlist. But there's a person with a guitar. They sing, you listen, and in that moment, music becomes human again. Not perfect, not polished, but real, because it demands your presence, your attention, your memory. Remember this moment, the industry didn't die from chaos. It died from an illusion. The illusion that music could be stored in the cloud and not in the heart. In New Orleans, on the corner of Bourbon Street, Evelyn sings, "Summertime." She's 82. Her voice trembles, not from fear, but like the breath of a fading era. This voice once resonated in studios, at festivals, in the headphones of millions. Now, only here, on the sidewalk, in rain or shine. Beside her, a teenager with a worn guitar. He doesn't record, doesn't film, just listens, and tries to repeat. Because he knows, if Evelyn falls silent, this song will be erased by the wind. Forever. Did you do that too? Listened, but didn't learn? Stored tracks, but not words? Now every note is like a grain in the desert. To pass it on, you must first absorb it. Into your chest, into your throat, into your fingers. Music ceased to be a file, it became breath. And to hear it, you need to stand close. Look into their eyes. Feel the voice tremble on a high note. It's not convenient, not scalable, but it's alive. Imagine, before the catastrophe, there were over 500,000 jazz recordings. Today, in New Orleans, 12 songs are remembered by heart. 12. Not because they forgot, but because they entrusted their memory to servers. And the servers are silent. And here's the paradox. The more music there was, the less remained. As if abundance killed memory. Do you know this feeling? When you walk down the street and suddenly hear a melody, not from a speaker, not from a phone, but from the mouth of a living person, and you freeze. Not because it's perfect, but because it's here, now, and tomorrow it might be gone. Without recordings, music disappeared from morning coffee, from traffic jams, from the gym. You no longer turn on a soundtrack to life. You wait for it, search for it, catch it on the fly. And if you're lucky, you remember it. Not entirely, but at least a piece. Because now every verse is like a spark, and to keep it from dying out, you have to sing it yourself. Remember this moment, the streets became concert halls, the sidewalks, stages, and memory, the last vinyl. Fragile, warm, alive. 16-year-old Lucas sits on the edge of his bed. The sun isn't up yet. He used to put on his morning playlist, 3 tracks that woke him slowly without alarm, first an acoustic guitar, then a light beat, then an energetic chorus. Today he looks at his phone. The screen is black. Not because the battery is dead, but because there's no point in opening apps. Nothing is there. He gets up, goes to the kitchen. His mother is silent. His father reads the newspaper. The house is quiet, broken only by the squeak of a chair. Lucas doesn't know how to start his day. He feels disarmed, as if he's forgotten the password to his own life. And for the first time, he understands. Music wasn't just background noise. It was a compass. And without it, he's lost his direction. Did you also lose your bearings? When instead of the usual soundtrack, there's only the ticking of a clock on the wall. A playlist isn't entertainment. It's a dopamine trigger. The brain is accustomed, sound, action. Guitar, get up. Bass, take a shower. Chorus, tie your shoelaces. Without this code, the day shatters into fragments. You look in the mirror and don't recognize the ritual. The pulse. Music structured our daily lives more deeply than a schedule or an alarm clock. The track before a workout isn't motivation. It's a chemical signal. Release adrenaline. The song in the car on the way home isn't background noise. It's an auditory gateway between work and me. These sound anchors kept the nervous system in balance. Without them, chaos. Not external, internal. You're sitting behind the wheel and don't understand, where am I going? Why? Silence. 76% of Americans reported losing their routine orientation without their usual tracks. They couldn't start their morning, couldn't fall asleep, couldn't cross the threshold of the office, because music became part of our nervous system, like breathing. We didn't just listen to it, we functioned through it. And when it disappeared, we were left like machines without firmware. The body works, but the control system is disconnected. Instead of a soundtrack, only the internal noise of anxiety. Palms sweat. Breathing becomes erratic. Now imagine, if we can no longer hear the past, can we remember it? Rock and roll of the 50s, jazz of the 40s, hip-hop of the 90s, all of it lived in recordings. And now young people only hear what someone can perform live. And if no one remembers what early rap sounded like, it ceases to exist. Not as a style, but as a memory. Do you know this feeling? When you try to remember how your favorite song started, but your mind is just a blank. That used to be normal. Now, it's a loss. Because culture isn't what we store on servers. It's what we transmit with our voice, with a glance, with a tremor in our throat. And if there's nothing to transmit, only silence remains. Check your morning ritual. What do you do first? Open a playlist? And if it's silent, do you still know who you are? Imagine a teenager from the Dallas suburbs. He's 16. He's never heard a recording, neither vinyl nor a file. For him, music is live sound, the neighbor with a harmonica, the school choir, his grandmother humming by the stove. One day he walks into the park. On a bench, an old man with a cracked guitar. He plays slowly. His voice rasps as if pulling notes from a swamp. A melody without a beat, without a chorus, without a drop. The boy freezes, a vibration in his chest, but he doesn't recognize the blues. He doesn't know that from such pauses, from such pain, rock and roll was once born. For him, it's just sound. Strange, unnecessary. He leaves, and the old man remains, the last witness of a chain broken forever. Did you do that too? Heard a melody and didn't understand where it came from? Genres don't grow on trees. They are built from recordings. Rock is not a guitar. It's Dylan's answer to Hopkins. Hip-hop is not a rhyme. It's Public Enemy's cry to James Brown. Jazz is not improvisation. It's a conversation between Armstrong and Miles across decades. Without recordings, these dialogues disappeared. Only fragments remained. Myths. They say there was a genre called rock, loud, with long hair, but there's nothing to check. Archives are silent. Servers are empty. Vinyls, dust. Do you remember what the first Nirvana track sounded like? And if not, does it still exist? And now, hip-hop, a genre born on the streets, raised on cassettes, transformed into a digital empire. $15,700,000,000 a year. Today, silence. No one can reproduce Rapper's Delight. No one remembers what Grandmaster Flash sounded like. Yes, someone beatboxes. Someone rhymes about the street. But without the originals, it's not hip-hop. It's a shadow, a gesture, an echo. The irony? Hip-hop always cried out, "Record history before it's erased." But when everything was erased, only the legend of a guy named Tupac remained. Or is it a fiction? Have you ever tried to explain to a teenager what a beat is if they've never heard a drum machine? But humans cannot live without music. So they started rebuilding. Not from files, from encounters. In parks, on corners, in basements. Musicians became custodians, not sellers. They don't offer a track, they transmit it. From mouth to ear, from hand to hand. But memory is fragile. Especially if you're from a generation where less than 1% could hum a melody without a recording. Technology taught us not to remember. And now, you pay the price. Every verse is like a spark, and if you don't fan it, it will die out forever. Do you know this feeling? When you hear a melody and can't say where it came from? That used to be normal. Now, it's a loss. Because music isn't sound. It's memory, linked in a chain. And the chain is broken. Sunday on Bedford and Lorimer. The sun isn't quite at its zenith, but the sidewalk is already warm. An old woman with a saxophone stands in the same spot where a coffee stand used to be. Teenagers gather without a word, just a nod, a glance. They start All of Me, not like the recording, as they remember it, as they feel it. On the third beat, the guitar falters. The drum from a bucket speeds up. The saxophone picks up and leads them back. The melody distorts, but it becomes more alive. You watch from the sidewalk, a vibration in your chest, not in headphones, in your flesh. This isn't a concert, it's a lesson, a ritual, a transmission. Musicians are now librarians, not the kind who sit in silence among shelves. the kind who carry the archive in their throat, in their fingers, in the rhythm of their heart. They choose what to save. Not everything can be held. The human brain is not a server. It doesn't remember thousands of tracks. It remembers 12 songs into which pain, laughter, farewell are woven. In New Orleans, it's exactly like that. Out of 500,000 jazz recordings, 12 remained. Not because they didn't want more, because the body is a fragile vessel. But in this fragility, there is strength. Every time they play, the melody changes and lives on. For the first time in 147 years, music is oral again. Ever since Edison captured sound in a cylinder, we believed time could be stopped. But time cannot be stopped. It can only be transmitted. From mouth to ear, from hand to hand. Now when the servers are silent, every live sound is an act of resistance. Not against silence, against oblivion. Do you feel it? When the saxophone hits a high note, your body responds. This is not data. This is breath. This is memory, inscribed in flesh. But what if the new generation doesn't want to remember? If, for them, blues is an empty word, and the Beatles a fairy tale? Without recordings, the past has become optional, and many choose to start with a clean slate. Their music doesn't quote, it creates. And then the question arises, if no one remembers if Hendrix existed. Did he really exist? The name remains. But the sound disappears. Like a Trojan horse. Like Atlantis. Did you do that too? Heard the name, but didn't hear the voice? Imagine, your playlist is silent, but a live person is playing on the street. You approach, listen, try to remember. Not entirely, at least a piece, because tomorrow it might not be there, and then only your throat will be the last archive. Are you ready to carry that? Remember this moment, culture is not stored, it is rebuilt anew each time. In a garage under Seattle, Marcus turns a knob on a homemade synthesizer. Sparks fly from exposed wires. He produces a sound, jagged, angry, as if metal is tearing flesh. His friends clap, shout, "It's a revolution!" He smiles. He doesn't know that in 1977 the same sound was already breaking ears in London. He doesn't know that his revolution is an exact copy of what the Sex Pistols were doing. In a world without recordings, every discovery seems like the first, and every echo, the voice of God. Did you do that too? Thought you were inventing something new, but in reality you were just repeating someone else's pain? Without archives, music became a cyclical machine. The same emotions, the same sounds. Blues is born from suffering. Hip-hop from anger. Electronic music from loneliness. The physics of sound doesn't change. Culture, neither. But without recordings, we don't see the chain. Only a link, and we think it's the beginning. Before the catastrophe, Americans listened to 4.5 hours of music a day. But less than 1% could hum even "Happy Birthday." We weren't storing music. We were just playing it, like a tape. And when the tape broke, only emptiness remained, and the illusion of novelty. Do you know this feeling? When you hear a melody and think, no one has ever done this before? But in reality, they have. You just hadn't heard it. The most unsettling thing? Teenagers now call the blues noise without a beat. Without a beat. Because for them music is rhythm, clear, danceable, functional. And the blues is a pause. It's a tremor in the voice. It's a guitar that doesn't play, but cries. For the new generation, it's not a language. It's interference. And if even pain ceases to be understandable, it means the connection to the past has not just weakened. It's broken. Music became background for action, not a mirror of the soul. Imagine your child hears strange fruit and asks, "Why is he singing so strangely?" You can't answer. Because you can't play the original, you can't show the context. You can't convey the shiver that went through America in 1939. You only say, "It was important." But words are not sound. Words are dust. Music survived, but its memory did not. And now every sound is alone, beautiful, powerful, but without roots, like a tree in the wind. Are you ready to carry the past in your throat? Or will you start with a clean slate and reinvent punk again, not knowing that it's punk? Remember this moment without memory. We don't just lose the past. We lose the future that could have grown from it. Sound recording technology created an illusion of permanence. We believed, once recorded, it's saved forever. But this catastrophe showed music doesn't live in the clouds, it lives in us. Recordings were just a mirror. And when the mirror shattered, we saw the truth, how fragile our cultural memory is. We built a system where billions of hours of music depended on servers, algorithms, formats. But music is not data. It is an experience. And experience cannot be uploaded. It can only be transmitted by voice, by gesture, by breath. By 2024, 98% of all music existed only in digital form. Not a single analog copy, not a single backup vinyl in the basement. We entrusted the memory of civilization to fragile systems and forgot music is not a file. It is a living organism, requiring breath. In Los Angeles, a former DJ no longer spins sets. Now he sits on the steps of a library in Oakland with a worn guitar. Children gather around. He plays a melody, not the whole thing, just a verse. But he sings it again and again until the little ones start to sing along. He doesn't know the title, doesn't remember the author, but he remembers how this song warmed him in his teenage darkness. And that's enough, because now his task is not to reproduce, to transmit, not to save a file, to ignite a spark. His calloused fingers run over the strings, and every sound becomes a bridge across the chasm of oblivion. Did you do that too? Listened to a track and forgot it by morning? And now every note is like a drop of water in the desert. Perhaps music doesn't need to be recorded. Perhaps it was always meant for the live moment, for the voice, for the ear, for the heart. But it needs us, our desire to remember, our willingness to hum in the shower, to teach a child a lullaby, to stand in the rain and listen to an old man on the corner. Because without us, even the greatest symphony will disappear, like an echo in an empty hall. And then it won't matter if Beethoven existed, if Prince existed, if Billie Holiday existed. Because music is not what is recorded. It is what is remembered. Music is what is remembered. Music is what is remembered. And now a question for you. If you could save only one thing, one melody in your memory or one recording on a physical medium, what would you choose? A melody you will sing for the rest of your days, passing it on to your children? Or a recording you will play once and never hear again if the disc cracks? Think about it. And write in the comments, because this choice is the essence of what we lost and what we can still preserve. For, as the catastrophe showed, music does not survive in servers, not in clouds, not in files. It survives in the voices of those who remember, in calloused fingers, in the chest where a rhythm beats, passed down from a grandmother. Music is what is remembered. And to remember means to be present, to look into eyes, to breathe in sync, and to sing, even if you falter.